All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling a topic that always gets anime fans fired up. Subs versus dubs.
Yeah, this one always seems to spark some passionate debates online.
It does. But beyond those, super strong opinions are some really interesting points, so we're going to dig into those.
Definitely. It goes way beyond just, language. We're talking authenticity, cultural understanding, even just personal preference.
Right, like how you experience the whole story. Let's start with that idea of authenticity. A lot of people say subbed is more genuine, but is that always true?
It depends. Take, for instance, a scene from Natsume's Book of Friends, where he meets a powerful spirit. The original Japanese voice actor just delivers this performance, all these subtle tremors in their voice, this hushed awe that's really hard to replicate. It adds so much depth emotionally.
That's a great example. I totally get how those original language nuances can hit you emotionally in a way that maybe gets lost in translation. But isn't dubbing also trying to do that? Even if it's a different language, isn't the aim similar?
For sure. Like high-quality dubbing, the goal is to capture that essence, even if it means changing certain things to work for a different audience.
Okay, so it's more than just the literal words, it's that deeper feeling.
Exactly. Think about the dub of Cowboy Bebop. The English cast, they nailed that cool jazzy vibe of the original, They brought their own style while staying true to the show.
You're right. But I gotta be honest, for some people, subtitles are a barrier. Not everyone enjoys reading while watching, especially if you want to just relax and be in the world of the show.
Totally. And it came up in that Reddit thread we saw too. For people with certain learning disabilities like dyslexia, subs can be a real struggle. Dubs make it much more accessible.
Absolutely. And even for people without those challenges, sometimes those subtitles fly by so fast, especially in action-heavy shows or anything with tons of dialogue. Tatami Galaxy, with subtitles, I was hitting pause and rewind constantly. It's so rapid fire.
Yeah, good subtitling. It's an art. It's not just the translation, it's timing them well, making them easy to read. That balance between giving you the info but not overwhelming you visually.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've talked about authenticity and accessibility, but what about the voice acting itself? I feel like that's where things get really heated in the debate sometimes.
Yeah, the quality of dubbing has been all over the place over the years.
Oh yeah, some of those early dubs were rough. Remember when Brock's onigiri was jelly donuts in Pokemon?
Oh, classic example of localization gone wrong. I mean, they meant well, trying to make it relatable, but it just felt off.
It really did. But to be fair, dubbing has come so far. There are some super talented English voice actors out there who love anime and bring so much to their roles.
Absolutely. And modern dubs tend to be way more faithful to the original script and the overall tone. They're not trying to completely change the story.
Yeah, it seems like they understand that making it accessible doesn't mean you have to change the whole thing.
It's adaptation, really. Good dubbing means understanding the culture, the humor, the emotional beats of the original, and then finding a way to make that work in a new language.
Like walking a tightrope between staying true to the source and making it sound natural.
Exactly. And, even with the best intentions, sometimes the lip sync can be a little distracting if the timing's off.
Yeah, I've noticed that, especially in shows with super intense dynamic voice acting in the original Japanese, like My Hero Academia or Attack on Titan.
It's true. In those shows, the original voice acting often uses really specific techniques, like almost growls or these strained whispers that are hard to match in English while still making the words clear.
So even with all the advancements, there are still challenges. But it's fascinating to see how much goes into a good dub.
It really is. It shows respect for the original while trying to connect with a new audience. And ultimately, both sub and dub fans can appreciate that.
They can. Because I think we all just want to experience these stories in a way that feels authentic and engaging, even if our ideas about how to do that are different.
Right. We might not agree on the how, but the goal is the same. So we've talked about being genuine, about accessibility, and the technical side of dubbing. What else comes into play with this subs versus dubs dilemma?
One thing we hear a lot is language learning. So many people say watching sub anime helped them learn Japanese.
Yeah, there's definitely truth to that.
But how does that actually work?
Think of it like constant exposure. You're seeing the written subtitles and hearing the spoken language. You pick up new words, hear different accents, absorb the grammar, all while doing something you enjoy.
More fun than just studying flashcards.
Way more. And you're engaged with the story, so you're more likely to remember what you pick up.
That makes sense. But don't you need some Japanese knowledge to even start?
It does get tricky if you're a total beginner. Diving straight into subs can be a lot. but even then, there's benefit in the exposure. You can start small, like recognizing common phrases or trying to learn a few words each episode. There are also online resources that break down specific scenes or phrases from popular shows.
So even if you're not fluent, subs can still be a tool, especially if you're using other methods to learn too.
For sure, it's finding what works for you. Some people like watching dubbed first to get the story, then switch to subs to start picking up the language.
Okay, so multiple ways to engage. Cool. But what about the argument that dubbing loses some of the cultural stuff, like the humor that makes Japanese anime unique?
That's a valid point. It goes back to that localization debate we were talking about before. Some jokes, idioms, references just don't translate neatly.
Like, I remember watching this dubbed anime where they tried to translate a pun, and it was just awkward. All the humor was gone.
That happens. It's why good dubbing needs someone who understands both cultures, not just finding equivalent words, but making sure the meaning and the impact come through.
So, no easy answer on the language learning front either. It's your level of Japanese, your learning style, how important cultural immersion is to you.
Exactly. Find the balance that works for you. And remember, no matter how you watch, it's about enjoying anime, connecting with the stories and the characters. That's what matters.
Very well said. But now I'm really seeing why this whole subs versus dubs thing can be so heated. It's about so much more than just language.
Absolutely. We're talking about how we experience a whole different culture.
Okay, but before we get too philosophical here, let's take a step back and think about something practical. Speed of release and availability.
Yes. The struggle of waiting for that dub.
Been there. So for anyone impatient to watch the newest stuff, does that automatically mean subs win?
It's a factor to consider. Sub versions come out faster, for sure. It's just translation and subtitling, so the process is quicker. Dubbing involves recording, editing, quality control. It takes longer.
Right. But what about those less popular anime that maybe never get dubbed?
Good point. Not everything gets dubbed, especially niche series or ones that haven't become mainstream.
So it's not just speed, it's access too.
Exactly. Sometimes, if you want to see certain types of anime, subs are your only option.
Wow. There's a lot to consider here. No wonder this debate gets so intense.
It's not just what you like. It's about language, cultural stuff, technical quality, accessibility. It's complicated.
It really is. And we haven't even touched on how emotionally invested we get in these shows and characters.
True. Regardless of subs or dubs, we want to experience the stories in a way that feels real and impactful.
Absolutely. Let's take a minute to think about what we've talked about so far. What stands out to you?
Honestly, the thing that gets me is that subs versus dubs goes beyond just what language you hear. It makes you think about cultural representation, accessibility, even the whole art of adaptation itself. It's like, how do you bring anime to a global audience and all the things that affect how we connect to those stories?
I like that. It's about how we engage with a whole different way of storytelling and expressing culture.
Exactly. And I think the most important thing is to remember that there's room for everyone in the anime fandom, whether you prefer subs, dubs, or a mix of both.
Very true. But I think it's time for a little break. We'll be back to look at some more specific examples and see if we can help you figure out where you fit in this subs versus dubs world.
Welcome back to our deep dive. I feel like we're really getting into the weeds of this subs versus dubs thing.
It's more complex than people think.
It really is. Before the break, we were talking about how dubbing has improved so much.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think that for a lot of anime fans, especially those who grew up in like the 80s and 90s, dubbed versions were their first experience with anime.
Makes sense.
Oh.
Those early dubs weren't always great, but they introduced so many people to this whole world.
Absolutely. And even if those early dubs sound kind of cheesy now, they're nostalgic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
First taste of anime, you know?
Totally. And back then, the studios didn't have the resources or the tech they have now. They were really figuring it out as they went along.
They were trying to make anime work for Western audiences. It's like they paved the way for the amazing dubs we have now. Like, now we've got voice actors who specialize in anime, studios that really care about accuracy and cultural sensitivity, and tech that makes the lip sync and the emotional stuff so much better.
It's come a long way, and that's led to some really fantastic dubs, like Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood. The dub is incredible. Same with My Hero Academia and Attack on Titan.
Those are so good.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to choose between the dub and the sub. Personal preference at that point.
Exactly. That's what's great about where dubbing is now. More options, more ways to enjoy these stories.
So, someone new to anime trying to decide subs or dubs, what advice would you give them?
Honestly, try both. Pick a show that interests you and watch an episode or two subbed and dubbed. Pay attention to the voices, the dialogue, how you connect with it all. See what feels better.
Simple but good advice. It really comes down to what you like.
It does. As long as you're enjoying it, engaging with anime, that's what matters.
And we got to respect each other's preferences, right? Whether you like subs, dubs, doesn't make you more or less of an anime fan.
Absolutely. We're all here because we love this art form. Focus on that shared passion, not the arguments.
Well said. So, to wrap this part up, what are the key things you want our listener to take away?
First, choosing between subs and dubs isn't about saying one is better. Both are valid. Both have pros and cons.
It's about finding what works for you.
Second, dubbing quality has gotten so much better. There are amazing dubs out there, really capturing the essence of the original.
So even if you're a sub fan, give dubs another shot. You might be surprised.
And lastly, be open-minded, be curious, try different things, experiment. Don't be afraid to change your mind as you discover new shows and stuff.
I love that. Expanding your horizons in the anime world. Before we let you go, any final thoughts or questions for our listener?
Yeah, actually, as you keep watching anime, think about this. What does your preference for subs or dubs tell you about how you approach storytelling and like immersing yourself in another culture?
Ooh, that's a good one. Makes you think.
Right. Do you want to hear the original performances, experience the nuances of Japanese? Or is it about the ease of English, being able to relax and follow along?
It's like self-reflection, but through anime.
Exactly. Understanding why we like what we like helps us appreciate all the different ways people connect with anime.
I like that. It's not just about the debate, it's about understanding ourselves, too.
Exactly. And I think that's really at the heart of this whole subs versus dubs conversation.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been digging into this whole subs versus dubs thing, and
It's been quite the journey.
it has. Hopefully by now you're seeing that it's not about picking a side, but appreciating all the different perspectives,
Absolutely.
So far, we've covered authenticity, accessibility, language learning, voice acting, even cultural context. Anything we've missed?
Well, one thing that pops up a lot is this whole idea of purists versus casuals, like the sub-elitists against the dub lovers.
Oh yeah, those online arguments can get a little wild. But isn't that kind of a false way to look at it?
Definitely. It oversimplifies things, and it can be kind of toxic for the community, honestly. Lots of people enjoy both subs and dubs. It just depends on the show, their mood, who they're watching with,
Right. Sometimes I'm totally in a purist mood. Gotta have every little nuance of the original Japanese.
Yeah.
Other times, I just want to chill and listen to the English.
Exactly. And both are totally fine. The important thing is to, respect each other's choices and not be judgmental.
Yeah, let's ditch those labels and just focus on the fact that we all love anime.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of how we experience anime, technology is actually making the lines between subs and dubs kind of blurry these days.
Really? How so?
Well, a lot of streaming services now have multiple language options right there. You can switch back and forth between subs and dubs whenever you want, even in the middle of an episode.
Oh wow, that's cool. Like having the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Plus, they're even working on AI dubbing tools. Did you know that?
Yeah, I read about that. Sounds super futuristic. But wouldn't that mean less work for human voice actors?
That's a valid concern, definitely a big conversation right now as AI gets more advanced. But some people think AI could actually help voice actors, make certain parts of their job easier so they can focus on the really creative stuff.
Huh. That's interesting. Makes you think about what the future holds.
It does. The world of subs and dubs is always changing, just like anime itself.
So after all this, what's our takeaway for the listener who's still figuring out where they stand on all of this?
I think it boils down to 3 things. Explore, experiment, and enjoy. Try watching anime both ways, see what clicks for you, and don't be afraid to change your mind as you watch different shows and genres.
I love that. Be open to the possibilities.
And most importantly, remember, there's no right or wrong answer. It's all about what you enjoy.
Well said. Let's celebrate all the different ways people connect with anime. And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of subs versus dubs. We covered a lot of ground, explored a lot of different perspectives.
We did. Hopefully you've come away with some new insights, maybe even a better understanding of your own preferences.
Whether you're team sub, team dub, or somewhere in between, we hope you keep exploring the amazing world of anime.
And remember, if this deep dive got you thinking, share your thoughts, keep the conversation going, because that's what makes the anime community so great. The passion, the discussions, the shared love for this incredible art form.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us and happy watching.